Hey, folks, welcome to the Land Fixer podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Logan Swanson. Today, we have an excellent guest. I'm so excited. Ryan, say hi to everybody. Ryan Hinricher.
Hey, what's up, Logan? Hey, everybody.
Did I get your last name right? I should have asked that before I hit
You
record.
nailed it. Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Right on. Bonus points today.
Thank you. Folks, as usual, if you need any funding for your land flips, land subdivisions, development projects, entitlement projects, anything as it relates to land, as long as we're not going vertical, I'm your guy. You can check us out at landpartnerfunding.com. If you are a landowner and you want to optimize your returns through some forced appreciation strategies and want to partner with someone like myself, you can reach out to me at thelandfixer@gmail.com. I'd be happy to work with you to give you top dollar. Ryan, thank you so much for being here. If you would just give us a brief overview of your company and what you're doing out there in Florida, that'd be a great place to start.
Right on. Thanks, Logan. Again, appreciate you having me. So I've got a background in real estate going on about 20-ish, 21 years, somewhere in there. I spent about 10 years in corporate, in the banking, finance side, really
Mhm.
lending, underwriting side with Wells Fargo. And so a lot of experience in seeing how the funding side of deals work. And I got into real estate, 2005-ish, right at the wrong time.
Yeah, perfect.
And I was in Tennessee at the time doing distressed assets. I got my real estate license. I started working for an investor that was buying a lot of deals, and we were acquiring them. We would value add, wholesale, pretty much everything. And I was boots on the ground, making offers, helping with renovations, did property management, everything under the sun, and really an entry level price point in Tennessee, Memphis market specifically. So cut my teeth doing all sorts of things there. Fast forward after the financial crisis, we went from doing a couple hundred deals in a year to literally zero in about a 9 stretch. And it was really a retool and come up with a better strategy. And it was almost like you could get an ROI without the I back in the day. And then you needed to have an investment to get a return on it post 2008. So early 2009, another guy and I started buying assets. We raised money from friends, family, fools, and got people to believe that, we had a lot of experience and we were value adding. So we would acquire homes, we would renovate them, we would put tenants in them and sell them as income producing assets,
Mhm.
turnkey investment type sales. After it was really difficult to do business. I actually moved to New York. My wife and I always wanted to live there before we had kids. So went up to New York and started shaking hands, started identifying, sharing our story. And my partner was still in Tennessee. People started saying, wow, this is actually a pretty cool idea. What's preventing you from growing it? And it was really funding. And so we raised a small private equity fund and we started buying distressed assets at the auction in volume. And I relocated to the Orlando area in 2011 and we were buying distressed assets along the I-4 corridor. So Orlando to Tampa, renovated tons of homes over the years. About 2018, 2019, started doing a lot of research on new construction.
Mhm.
So it went from buying foreclosures that was pretty easy 2011 to 2013, and then it got
Yeah.
harder, more competition, fewer deals. So then we were really doing value add and we started doing additions and just trying to create value where
Right.
maybe other competitors weren't. So got into that and that started fueling my desire to just go vertical on things. And 2020 started building a few homes. When everything locked down, wasn't sure if the world was going to end, but when the state of Florida, the governor said, we're going to stay open, it was just like a light bulb went off. And first time in my life, I felt like maybe I was at the right place at the right time. And we just went all in on buying lots and building homes. And, fast forward to last year, about 400 new construction homes in that period. And, and still building a lot of them, just entry level market homes, call it sub 300K, Florida exurb areas. And I just wanted to do something more. And so we're still doing those types of builds. And I launched Sunworth Homes about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And the concept was creating a healthier home. And how do you create a healthy home? the thought was we wanted to democratize, or I wanted to democratize healthy homes because typically your wellness driven homes are million, $2 million
Yeah.
plus or higher. You know, they get all the windows, they get all the cool stuff, right? They get the wood inside the house. And I thought it's got to be doable. Like, let's just try to tackle this. And I don't want to say it's not equitable. It doesn't seem fair that everything is, multi-million-dollar homes that are that type of home.
Right.
Uh, in Central Florida, it's custom homes typically that are that, and then the market is dominated by your D.R. Hortons, your Lennars, all your production builders. Their goal is just value engineer everything and commoditize the house. It's not personalized in any way. Every home is roughly the same. You can pick different plans. You get very few windows. And I was building my own custom home 21, 22, and it's kind of a watershed moment. I was sitting down with my architect, and at the time I lived in a DR Horton home, like a large, 3,800 square foot box.
Yeah.
And my architect he said, Logan, go home and count your windows. And he goes, you're going to have less than 20. And I'm like, dude, I've got all kinds of windows. I got
It's a big
a
house. Yeah.
big, yeah, big house, man. There was 18. And, then we went to 53, and without that much more living space, it's just transformational and saving trees on the lots and that sort of thing. And so I started thinking the last year, like, I built all these homes. Why can't I do something like this at a lower price point? So we really dialed in. I say I've got my team. I've brought on a holistic designer who's well certified. Well certified is like the new LEED certified, but for wellness in the home. There's a lot of commercial buildings that are well certified, and that's just kind of moving down the food chain from large master plan communities to hospitality to commercial buildings, and now in the single family space. My top salesperson, girl named Julie on my team, is also a certified health coach. So I started kind of like grabbing all the talent that I had around me and saying, let's try to do this. And our first home, we got about 14 windows in what was a 6 window footprint, typically. 1,450 square foot house, entered it in the Parade of Homes in Ocala, where I build.
Hmm.
And we won best kitchen under 400K on a $306,000 house. And I said, okay, we've got something. And so over the last year or so, just have been really doubling down on that idea.
That's awesome. Yeah. So my first thought when I was learning about you is one, you have a lot of opportunity for lots in that market, right? I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with
Yeah.
that area and they have developed an enormous amount of lots. So you
Yeah.
really do have the opportunity to go pick and choose, right? When you're looking to build something, or is that usually purchased with a client in mind already? I guess the better question is, are these spec homes or do you have a
Yeah.
client on the front end?
Yeah. It's full spec for the majority. I had one house where somebody walked into the model home and said, I want this. I want this wellness concept. And we worked with them to customize the home probably beyond what I would typically do. And I learned a lot through that process. But generally speaking, it's specking. And so there's a
Yeah.
lot of financial risk in acquiring lots. And right now, I've done 5 with the Sunworth brand. I've got 6 in construction, and I've got about 24, 25 lots in addition to that on the
Hmm.
shelf. And this is running parallel to my traditional entry level home build where I've got about 35 under construction. So my goal is to continue pushing on this wellness angle, but I'm using my own capital for it. I'm
Hmm.
trying to be really thoughtful on the land. And as you know from
Right.
researching Korea, there's a ton of developed lots, but you as a land expert know that not all lots are the same.
Yeah. So what are you
And
looking for specifically when you're buying properties?
yeah, and one of the, I think I grew up on a farm in South Dakota,
Hmm.
middle of nowhere, really. And it was always about the land and the quality of the land and what you could grow on that land and what's the next iteration of that land. You wouldn't buy cheap farmland and try to grow great crops on it. You would end up growing poor crops on it. And so while there's a ton of lots available, I've really tried to curate lots for Sunworth that are unique. They're lots that are typically about 20% higher than the lots around them in a 1 mile radius in terms of price point if they happen to be listed. generally they're not listed, what we buy,
Yeah.
and we're doing a lot of direct marketing. But what I'm looking for is unique features and landforms,
Hmm.
things that are either too challenging for other builders. Most builders
Okay.
are just clear cutting the lots. That's really
Hmm.
cheap to do, and it's pretty sad. It's kind of like raping of the land in a sense. So we're saving a lot of trees, too many, according to my land clearing guys and the GCs and all the subs. They're not happy with me a lot of times, but when you see the
Yeah.
finished product, it's worth it. So what I'm trying to do, Logan, is when you walk into the home, you're going to typically see, instead of a typical Florida 2-panel slider, we have a 9-foot 3-panel slider. So you're looking right through the home into the backyard. And I'm trying to have a focal point. So the moment you walk into the house, you're connecting with an outdoor feature while you're walking into the house. And then throughout the home, the theme is green without using green typically as a paint. And so we might have a feature wall or something that's green, but typically you're walking in and you're seeing through all the windows, you're seeing focal points of nature throughout the house. And so that's really important to us. And so finding the right lots is challenging.
Hmm.
And what I will often do, like, we had an epic oak tree in the front yard of this house, and it was right where the building pad should be. And I bought this lot, and everyone's saying, "What are you doing?" And so we found a way to tuck the house under the tree without the prospects of the tree falling on it and avoiding
Hmm.
the septic in this area. And then I'm branding the homes. So this particular tree hangs right over the front of the house and really frames the front elevation. And that home was called One Fine Oak. And so if wealthy people can name their vacation homes, why can't we name each and every home after its physical characteristics?
Hmm.
And so we had one, for example, called Hidden Meadow, where we carved the house into the woods and there's a clearing, and that's where the pad was placed for that house. And so rather than it just be the XYZ floor plan, we're naming and trying to define the characteristics of each home.
I love that. I mean, we live in a world where everybody's trying to just make everything as generic and simple as possible. And to have,
Yeah.
I guess the heart and the character to try to stand out, which is, plays strongly to myself. The idea of just constructing another, you know, Lennar style subdivision to me is just sad.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of connecting to nature and saving trees. I mean, that's really cool. How are you able to do that and not make it a 500,000 or $600,000 home? I
Yeah.
mean, it seems like there's a lot of extra work going into this.
There is. And, thankfully we've made money on each home, and margins haven't quite scaled, but there's proof of concept and there's a little bit of traction. And I'm looking at this as, if I can make this work in what has been challenging housing market, with interest rates and excess inventory, which, by the way, I think the state of Florida is absorbing most of the excess inventory and we're starting to see some things turn. But my thought is, as the market expands and demand returns, that those margins will expand
Right.
commensurately. So if I'm selling a traditional house that we would build, it might be a 280, and we would sell this house for like a 310. Though I've got, I'm adding and iterating, but kind of our basic Sunworth home. And, that I might be putting 20K in to get 30K more. It's not
Hmm.
a great ROI. Most people want a higher ROI than that. But I think it's important to actually do this and try to keep the price point reasonable. And I realize that a lot of the people coming into our homes are going to require an appraisal, and they're just not
Hmm.
wealthy cash buyers, and that's fine. So it's been challenging. And so I would say certain things don't cost as much as people think. An example would be that Lennar home that has one single window in a master or primary bedroom.
Hmm.
Taking that to 3, that might be an extra $700. And it
Right.
shows you how value engineering, or how cheap the focus is to just drive margin on the production level. And so if I'm doing that a number of times throughout the house, yeah, there's some cost there. And there's some cost to bring in a wood element in the primary bedroom in the ceiling. I either do tongue and groove or I do beams. There's a lot of science behind if you are seeing timber indoors, it has healing properties. I'm not trying to get goofy, but they're doing it in hospitals. In Children's Hospital, for example, in Switzerland, they did a study where they had wood ceilings and the children would wake up and they would heal faster by staring at wood when they're laying in bed. And so those kind of things that we're trying to use science and bring those elements in. And so, it's just a matter of, can you do that and not overspend? And it's really challenging. But there's also some elements that are worth it, are worth the spend. All of our homes have a front porch that's usable, not a little stoop or anything, but a usable front porch. You can have a living room type setting or
Yeah.
Adirondack chairs, and there's plenty of clearance behind you. And then all of our homes have a screened in lanai on the back. And so throughout the day, you're going to be able to sit outside in an outdoor living environment and not get baked by the Florida heat, depending on the time of day. You're either in the front or you're in the back. So some of those things are worth it, and that's where we get a little bit more. If that front porch under structure costs an extra $10,000, that's probably where 15K of my gain comes from.
Hmm.
And it's just trying to be cognizant and spend the money where it makes the most sense. One other example is every kitchen has a farmhouse fire clay sink, ceramic sink in it, and that's something you see in $1 million homes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really an extra $300 on our end. It's not a huge spend, but it just transforms the place in the kitchen. It makes it more conducive to cooking at home. And so there are certain things that are not big moves, but it's just a decision to actually do it and let the market decide if it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think in many aspects of real estate, a little bit of intentionality and a little bit more money makes a dramatic difference. I think you're
Yeah.
seeing that. And you coming from a background of underwriting, right? Like the financial
Yeah.
world, do do you struggle with not getting like an absurd return on these little bits of investments or this extra effort? Because I feel like I've brought my idea, the community I was telling you about before, to a few investors, and the idea of just raising capital. And most of them who are already familiar with home building are like, "Why would you do that?" I want like
Yeah.
1.5 to 2 acre lots, and they're like, "You could
Yeah.
put four more houses on each lot. What do you do?" Or they just don't understand it. So I guess my question behind that is like, does that bother you, or do you just see this as like a long term play? You're like, I'm going to build a name, I'm going to build a brand, I'm going to figure out the efficiencies and the economy of scale, and then, look at us in 2 3 years. You know,
Yeah, it's definitely the latter. Having raised funds for our other home builds, I know this doesn't fit the pro forma. And I really think I want to get enough proof of concept. I want to get to say 50 homes under this brand and then show the spreadsheet to people who are not IRR driven. And it's a different type of investor. It's sort of like in the hospitality space, for example. If you're doing a boutique hotel, it has to be somebody who has a belief other than an IRR. And when do we
yeah.
exit this deal? And so I think it's finding people who align with that. I have people that express interest right now, and they want in because they are those type of people.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I'm not ready. So I want to get to the point where I'm using my own cash long enough that I've got a nice track record, and I feel like I can also do it the way I want to do it right now.
Hmm.
And the moment I take on other dollars, I feel like it starts diluting a little bit. There might be a little bit of pressure,
Yeah.
even if people share that belief. So I'm also able to really experiment and do some crazy stuff. For example, my new model, it's about to finish. It's got a sauna in the garage. I mean, this is just at a 325 price point. It just makes no sense to put a 10K sunlighting two-person infrared sauna in the garage, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I've got a larger model that will support a sauna indoors and not in the garage, but we're creating kind of this little multi-purpose space by doing an extra, it's like a third stall, but a half. So it could be a golf cart. It's close to the Rainbow River. So it's like paddleboards, kayaks, sauna in this iteration, and epoxying the floor and doing those kind of things. So it actually feels like an extra space. Could be a
Hmm.
little gym or something like that. But I'm able to experiment right now. So that's really important, and I'm going to as many conferences I can on the space. Global Wellness Summit has their annual coming up. I went to last year, and it's full of dreamers. It's full of people that are doing something that probably doesn't make sense to a lot of investors. And guess what? There's a lot of success in that. And so that's just kind of the angle right now is I need to do it the way I want to do it without the pressure of the, IRR crowd looming
Yeah.
over me. Exactly. So
Yeah. And I wonder if there's going to also just be this tendency for a total cost creep. Like, all right, there's just so many opportunities to increase or add new benefits and features that eventually the tendency might be to just walk the price up because you can keep adding and adding. Are you going to
yeah.
be pretty mindful of staying in the same price range, or do you think, like, why not pour more into it to make it a healthier home?
Yeah. That's a good one. So the challenge right now is I'm trying to stay, let's just use a 1,500 square foot envelope and keep that in a 350-ish or less range.
Mhm.
Really hard to do with all the things I want to do. The new model, for example, one of the things in like having a healthy home is a lot of making sure you have storage and the right types of organization. It kind of keeps the mind clear. Well, doing custom closets, California style closets is an enormous expense that costs about the same in a 700K home as it does in a 350. But I went ahead and did it, and then we're going to have that as we're going to option. We're going to show some options. So here are your standard finishes, and then there's some various options that we're doing. It's important that some of the standards everybody gets in terms of having the timber in the home, like we discussed. I've got tongue and
Yeah.
groove on both the lanai and the front porch.
Hmm.
There, there's going to be some automation options and maybe some like wellness appliances. For example, there could be a red light wall. The sauna could be optioned. There's some things that they may not appraise, and appraisers might not see that value, so that might just be a payout side, straight up option. But it is really hard. Tons of stuff I wanna do, and to democratize it at the same time is
Yeah.
gonna be really challenging. I think the way I'm gonna deal with that is we're just gonna have a larger floor plan. So I've got a 1,750 square foot model that will creep that price. But if we can stay true to the ethos in, a sub 350 in a sea of 300s, I think, and the house is substantially better. For example, there's some little things that I've got if I do a HVAC system that is, top notch, whatever, it could be like 25,000, and that's just not reality in this price
Yeah.
point. But there's a company called Whoosh that makes a Bluetooth smart filter, and it cleans the air, and it will show your air quality index right when you put that filter in, and you can look on your phone and you'll see after a few days, it just goes to almost perfect air. It will show you the lifespan of that filter. And it's $150 setup. And then each filter is $50. So that's a way to work around that and provide clean air. Reverse osmosis, where you've got
Yeah.
your separate water. Panasonic makes a great set. It's $350, including the faucet, the connection, and your first filter. So there's certain things like that we can do without creeping the price too
Yeah.
much. And then there's my wish list that, I'm not going to be able to achieve all of it,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah, indefensible. I'm sure you have a
Yeah,
huge wish list
exactly.
after you're going to all the conferences.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. But I will say this: everyone thinks, wow, to democratize this is pretty incredible. We were just featured in. I had an article in Forbes recently, and the National Association of Home Builders asked me to be on their Healthy Homes Committee. There's some traction in this entry level wellness thing, and I really think it's going to get there eventually.
Hmm.
It's just going to work its way down the system. But what does that mean? And there's one of the nationals that is calling themselves the wellness builder, but it's really the community amenity focus where they're
Hmm.
bringing that in. The houses haven't changed at all. They're just commoditized, cheap boxes, no windows, et cetera. And they're kind of figuring out we can brand and drop it into the community features. So I think it starts with the structure you're in and making that timeless. And really a lot of this is just turning the clock back 100 years. And so my land planner architect, he's designed historic custom style homes. So new new homes that look old. And so craftsman style elements, lots of windows. Before there was AC in Florida, you had to have a ton of windows. And
Yep.
so it's really just turning the clock back 100 years and before we had red light therapies and all that. And what did the homes look like? And so I'm trying to achieve that. It really at the root of this.
Yeah, and I think probably what impresses me the most is just taking it's countercultural. Like take the opposite tack. Like, why don't we just build more value into the homes? And do you see that in the days on market? Are your homes selling very quickly in comparison to what's being built around?
Yeah, right now, days on market is running about 80 days in the areas that I'm building. And then my homes, I think the longest one was about 45 days. And I've got one I'm about to list right now. I have nothing on the market right now. And then, several that are finishing up, kind of timed for spring. But the last one that we closed on was about 45 days. The one before that was pre-sold. Everything has been either pre-sold or under 45 days. So I think that's a testament. And they're
Yeah.
you know, 15 to 20% higher, maybe not 10 to 15% higher than what's out there in the market. So I think people are really looking at that. The funniest part of it, though, I would say, is I'm going with all this healthy messaging, et cetera. All but one buyer was just like, this was just the nicest home. One buyer
Yeah.
was just absolutely dialed in on the health and wellness aspect. And to the other ones, it was just aesthetically pleasing and they liked the windows or they liked the trees, but the wellness side wasn't really, resonating. So my thought is we're looking around a corner, and I think there's a lot of money to be made or and impact to be made if you can see around corners. And, society's not there yet in this price
Yeah.
point, but I think we're looking around the corner and hopefully front running it a little.
Yeah, and I wonder if that speaks to the nature of like people's intuitive understanding of healthy surroundings. If you walk into a building that's designed around health, green, sunlight, I mean, you may not even intellectualize what's happening, but your
Right.
body is going to react to it. You're like, this is a nice house. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So I bet there is just a subconscious factor. Like you probably, if you're building homes that quality, I mean, you don't need to market it. People are just gonna walk in and be like, yeah, this is better than the other ones. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And my thought is with our new model, rather than try to market directly to consumers, I've got different realty groups and brokerages that I'm going to invite them, you know, not the big party, but specific brokerages to bring their teams in, let them Instagram in the house, let them, give them the talk that I want to give and let them share that messaging. And I did that on one house before. And about 20 agents came up. It's an hour and a half from Orlando, and a group of 20 agents came up and they were all filming and they were, it was a really cool experience. And I want to be able to do that and just repeat that process. We sold that house pretty quick, but with the model, I intend to hold this model for about 2 years and use it for those types of demos until I have a slightly larger plan built. Maybe I've got a project in the works that would be a 24 lot community
That's what I
that
was gonna
would
ask you.
be
That you have any
yeah.
communities planned ahead.
Yeah, and so right now it's been scattered lots, spot lots, as it's called here in Florida, but all in a very tight cluster where
Hmm.
I'm going to be creating like a board showing, having each lot on one map, if you will. So when people come into the model, they can see what lots we have available if they want to choose. They'll still plan on just speccing homes. Like that's going to be my ultimate driver because I can do what I want in the home and change orders frankly slow me down and they don't
Yeah.
necessarily come out the way people think and they might dilute what we're trying to do a little bit. But I do have a community where I know the owner personally. He's in process of entitlements, and it's got some really cool ecotourism opportunities in the neighborhood, and so I'm working on that. If that happens, it'll definitely vault us kind of to the next paradigm of what we're trying to do.
Would you say that project does go through? Do you have any say in how the whole community is laid out? Are you kind of in the design phase with them right now?
So what's interesting is it's excess land in a community that has been fully built out with this
Mm.
land platted originally. The existing amenities are phenomenal, and they have access again to like I can't go into a whole lot of detail, but
Yeah.
an ecotourism. launch area, if you will. And it's sort of like everything's already baked, but it was done right when it was done 30 years ago, and the amenities have been fully upgraded. The HOA is extremely low, and it's like the right demographic, where when they built it out, they saved tons of trees, and it
Yeah.
probably didn't make sense at the time. You know, it's not like a typical Central Florida area, but I have done some small subdivisions in my other business where infill, walkable type areas. I live in Winter Garden, very walkable area in Central Florida, and did a small custom subdivision where I could focus on what that those amenities were, connection to the bike trail, those kind of things. So I'm looking forward to, as I grow this, starting to scout for raw land and being able to do like boutique type communities.
Do, do, does part of you feel like split since you still are running your sort of more affordable home building business? Is part of you just like disenchanted with it now and you really just want to focus on the health side? Or do you feel like there's gonna be a natural progression where you just leave the other one behind?
Yeah, that's so sure. There's some excitement about Sunworth where my heart is there. The other side of it, I get a lot of referrals from investment groups. And what
Hmm.
I've been doing slowly, it's like I can't help myself, is taking the other side of it, changing the color schemes to really hit those earth and nature tones.
Yeah.
And I've just kind of upgraded all of that in parallel. And what's interesting is a lot of those properties, investment groups are buying them and they're reporting that the rents are higher, and I'm nominally, like a $1,850 rent is now renting at 1950, but hey, we're in a slow market. Or sorry, not 1900. So like an extra $50, but in a slow market where people are dropping rents, it's like what's going on here? And just the lot curation is not the same, but as far as what I can control inside the house and doing board and batten on the siding, getting more texture, and I think tenants are looking and saying they might just be literally saying, "This is a better looking house." I think that's
Yeah.
all it is. But I'm really just trying to doll up the other side of things. And it's important to keep that running because it does produce some revenue for me to
Gives you freedom.
invest into this side.
Yeah.
But I have thought about taking some of that capital and talking to the investment group once I have a proof of concept and saying, I want to expand this and have that available to do so.
Yeah, that's always, I feel like, when my career started, I was doing a lot of just basic land flipping where all I was doing is trying to buy it cheap and resell it, buy it cheap and resell it. And as soon as I started doing any sort of improvements to the lot, that other side just became ugly to me. I just like, I don't
Yeah.
want to just flip, like, and that made more money. That made more sense for me to keep doing it. But I was like, I don't take any, or I take much less satisfaction from those sorts of deals than I do these longer projects. We're wrapping up subdivision in Tennessee right now, which is beautiful. And that's just, I feel like proud, I'm proud of that, but I'm not so proud of just flipping dirt, because I found somebody who needed money and they sold it to me cheap. So yeah, I was
Yeah.
just curious about that. If you feel
No,
like something's just kind of changing in you.
it is. And I think it's in a sense it's a growth aspect. It's in the same way that when I was wholesaling homes or wholesaling lots, homes, whatever, and then started renovating. And you're almost like, well, I'm not even doing anything over here. It doesn't feel like I'm adding value. And then now I did an addition, just doing your typical reno. So I think it's just a growth process. Who knows? Maybe I'll, ideally, if you talk to me and we reconnect in 3 to 5 years, this is all I'm doing. I mean,
Yeah.
no questions on that. That's where the heart is, and that's where I want to be. And I think I can make a big impact doing this. And I think that a harder part is going to be staying in that entry level and democratizing it and getting that to scale. I I think again that we're seeing around the corner a little bit, but will the market respond or not? Will people
Mhm.
see that value? But I do think getting to communities versus spot lots eventually would be the goal.
So say hypothetically you are building a community, and you were able to design it from the ground up, what would be the features that you added to the community as the amenities? What are the sorts of things that you think you would add?
So I think it obviously would depend on the size of the community.
Let's say
Um,
50 homes.
okay, nice. So 50 homes, I would really be looking for some land that has unique forms.
Hmm.
If it was possible to have access to any sort of water, even
Yep.
on a visual aspect, it doesn't have to have utility. There's plenty of places within the state of Florida where it might be a pond, it might be a wetland. Probably aren't going to swim in it, but a view would be great to have some engagement with different elements like that and have, community fire pit type things. So you're kind of hitting
Hmm.
those types of elements, walking trails. I would try to I think you have to have some man-made elements, but
Yeah.
ideally, if you can utilize what's already there, if there was some connection or path to connect to a bike trail, I think that would be huge. Having some form of racket sport
Yep.
involvement would be big. I think that's just something you can do forever. The hand-eye coordination is proven to be kind of a longevity type tool. It could just be pickleball. It might be tennis pickleball. So I think having that and really that community gathering, first of all, front porches being a mandate, like an absolute mandate on every home. It encourages connection. But in addition, having connection points within the community, those could be small green spaces. I don't know the typical production home community center. I'm not super excited about that, but maybe something that would be a little bit more open and covered,
Yeah. Yep.
you know? No
Pavilion sort of
AC.
thing. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. And if there was no water, natural water element, then I think looking at a pool, some sort of pool would be great to give people that option, especially if I'm trying to keep this in an entry level price point where people aren't going to be doing individual pools. And if you were saying, Ryan, it's got to be in the state of Florida, okay, let's have a place to cool off. That would be ideal. I think, those are broad strokes, obviously, Logan, but
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's what I'd be
I mean,
looking for.
that's exactly what I was interested because for the community that I'm interested in doing, again, I want it to be affordable. I want it to be community focused, but I want it to be family focused. And one of the things that you run into when you start thinking about community amenities is maintenance. So if I'm going to try to create an affordable community with a bunch of amenities, and then all of a sudden there's that monthly HOA bill that
HOA.
is 30% of the mortgage or something like that, all of a sudden you shot yourself in the foot. So that's really why I was curious because I mean, like you really have to walk a fine line there. You have to do stuff that's relatively low maintenance, but is still impactful to the community.
Yeah.
So I think all of your suggestions are great because my first thoughts were the same sort of things: walking path, water feature, pavilion. I really would like the idea of a community garden
Yeah.
and just some sort of like rudimentary playground equipment, like something that's going to get the kids out, and a big field, just a
Yeah.
big field, like a play. When I
And,
grew
and,
up,
and there's some, no, go
no,
ahead. Yep.
I was just gonna say when I grew up, there's a big field across the street. That's all we did. We would just grab a ball and go out there, grab a ball and go out there. That was every night, you know. And for my kids, that's not around me. They'd have to walk through traffic 5 blocks to try to get to one. You know.
Yeah. I like that, and the neighborhood that I'm in has natural features that they would, like taking a giant log and stealing that, and then kids
Mhm.
just can climb all over it and,
Yep.
those type of things. Ideally, if there was a natural water feature and you didn't have a pool, that's gonna save on your HOA, and if it's in Florida, that probably means there's some wetlands around it,
Yep.
and then you could, conserve some land as well. So you've got
Hmm.
this nature kind of focus and conservation being part of the community and people understanding that and
Yep.
kids getting to grow up and see that land has been conserved, I think is important.
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like I line up just right with you. I just realized I didn't look at any of my questions, which means this is a pretty interesting interview to me. See if I'm going to miss anything important. I think you're the first biophiliac I've interviewed. I had a note on that. I should have introduced you.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we've done there, and kind of hats off my well certified holistic design girl. She has there's ratios of how much nature you can see inside the home. There's like a golden ratio. There's something that's too little where it doesn't affect the brain, and there's something that's too much. Like if every tile pattern had giant palm tree leaves, it's a little overkill. But if you
Hmm.
can put subtle patterns of nature in everything from light fixtures to wall tile, things like that throughout, it can even be in the form of handles and, old school knobs and things like that on your hardware. So we've done that in all of them. And some of it would be a feature wall that has a herringbone, but if we paint that herringbone feature wall green, it actually looks like a plant with stems.
Hmm.
And so things where you might not think of it, like you said, intellectually you might not actually be there, but something happens subconsciously. And so we've done these patterns in nature throughout the home, and without being really loud.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do. I read a lot of books on it, and she came into my homes and was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I'm really pleased with the way the model came through. The people that have been there now, it's not 100% yet, but have walked through theirs. They're like, there's just something about this. I don't know what it is. Very calming. And I'm like, yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. So getting that correct is important. And
Yeah.
I think you're seeing it in a lot of public institutions and places where you're starting to see more wood, even in retail establishments. And so the world is catching on to this concept of biophilic design. And I want to bring that to people who don't have a lot of choices for that in their homes.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, man. We're about at the time. So thank you so much for being on. If they are you interested in people reaching out to you, picking your brain, or did you have anything you'd like from
Yeah.
my audience while you're here?
Yeah, I would say check us out at sunworth.com, and there you'll get a link to the socials. Instagram is /Sunworth Homes. That's probably the place where I update the most, and you'll see the progress of different homes. You'll see a lot of articles, information on our ethos and how we're doing what we do. We're really an open book. We want people to learn about it, and hopefully we get some people that are interested in moving forward.
Beautiful. Ryan, thank you for your time. Folks, as usual, reminder, if you need funding for your land flip, subdivision, development projects, anything that's flat and not vertical, reach out to me at thelandfixer@gmail.com or check out www.landpartnerfunding.com, and we will see you on the next one. Cheers.
Thanks, Logan.
Thank you.